How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses on VTubeProductions.com and YouTube.com with your favorite show hosts, are still.
Arian.
And Volacel, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week. But first of all, if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server, which is the best and easiest way to contact the show and the hosts and the other listeners to the show, and you can easily get there by clicking on the link provided in the show description underneath the archive on YouTube.
And get arrested.
Yes, and get arrested.
That
Mostly
might also
spread
happen.
the
I make no
memes.
guarantees.
Spread memes, not whatever goes on in the politics board. Just don't go in there.
It is hazardous. It is hazardous, especially if the NSA is watching you.
Yes, and it will make you very, very angry.
I fully expect that politics board to be used against me in a court case one day.
Almost certainly. So, on the stream today, I'm going to play a game that just released yesterday, and that is Orcs Must Die 3, because I really love this franchise. There are only 3 games, and not a MOBA. That never happened, by the way.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
Wasn't that the tower defense 3D
that's right.
thing? Right.
Yeah, an action tower defense.
I stopped at 2.
Yeah, well, 3 just came out. There was Unchained, but they tried to combine kind of like action tower defense with a MOBA, and it was a mess. It just did not work. It was not fun.
Isn't there already that game? What is it called? I can't remember. I tried playing it once, and I was really bad at it. And it's really hard for me to search my Steam
I think
library.
there is there's actually a couple of MOBA tower defenses out on the market.
Yeah, it was a really popular one, and I remember trying to play it, and I was terrible, and I can't remember what it was called. Dungeon Defenders? No.
It's not a MOBA one, but it's basically the same sort of thing.
Right. Okay. Well, it's not a MOBA. It's functionally the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I see.
It's also being cash shopped to the eyeballs.
Yeah, that a lot of people had high hopes for that franchise going forward, and then it sort of dropped off the map.
Yeah, they have had I think they've got Dungeon Defenders Immortal or Eternal or something active now, but yeah, I'm gonna have to try it, I think, but I haven't heard good things.
That is $50 in DLC.
Yeah, there you go. Which Dungeon Defenders is that?
The first one.
Oh yeah.
Holy crap.
I think I got most of it in a bundle at one point for like 5 cents each.
Were you thinking of Smite, Paul?
I don't know.
Smite's kind of a third-person MOBA rather than top-down. It's the one with all the various gods. Although they've kind of run out of viable gods, so they're going all mythological figures now.
Yeah.
Well, whatever characters are in the public domain.
Basically, yeah, they're starting to spread out a bit more.
At the point you've hit, Thunderbird is a playable character. I think that's when we've run out of popular deities. Any of the Native American interpretations.
Oh no, that's all right. I didn't know if it actually had a couple of those fairly early on. But there's a couple there which are kind of a stretch, like the squirrel that hangs around on Yggdrasil.
Ratatosk.
That one, yes. I'm just going to pick a...
Well, it sounds like they still haven't reached FGO level yet, so it's still fine.
It's still fine, and people enjoy it, so have at it. Sappers on it. I don't want to play with Sappers while I'm doing the show.
I still drive by there, and it might be their old office now, like at least once a week. It's just up the road. I don't know if the company's still there or not, but
yeah. So I've actually played through the story mode. My brother and I just kind of sat down yesterday evening and just burned our way through it. They haven't changed the mechanics over much, which is good, because the mechanics were pretty much fine.
So what's the purpose in having a third one then?
Third one is they just kept the story going. You've got 2 new characters being apprentices of the previous characters. The War Mage from the first game returns, but he's actually out of the story until right at the end, which is probably just as well because he's a complete idiot. So yeah, this is just... The story honestly doesn't matter all that much. What matters is the new game mode, which is raid or siege mode, where the back half of the map is just kind of your regular corridors. You set up your traps and all that to defend your rift. The front half, however, is a massive open area, which will be filled up with hundreds of orcs at a time. So you need to use bigger traps to stop them getting into the back area and overwhelming your smaller defenses. Which is a lot of fun, considering the first big defense trap you get is just a giant springboard.
I see.
So when you're flinging orcs 30 at a time into the void, it's awesome.
How come you haven't depopulated the entire orc species at this point in the franchise?
I think that was actually explained at the end of Dungeon Defenders 2. They're not actually living creatures so much as just kind of arcane fallout.
So, like, 40k orcs then. They're just sort of spores.
Kinda, yeah. Oops. So, yeah, they are infinite, they are stupid, and they are completely expendable. Let's see what map I'm dealing with here. Yeah. Alright. So that's basically what I've been playing this week. I haven't played much Final Fantasy. I did go back and do that dungeon that I finished the last show on, and that wasn't too bad. No accusations of autism.
Siren Song C.
Siren Song C. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I really like it as a first dungeon, but it's very. I think it's actually a very good one for people who don't really know the difference between Final Fantasy and WoW, because it's basically an archetypal Final Fantasy dungeon. All the bosses are very dancey, with a bit of trash in between.
Yeah.
It's very, very classic, very solid introductory for the expansion. But you will still get molested seriously if you do not do the dance correctly.
You gotta do that dance. Otherwise, yeah, you explode. At least on the first boss. I'll go with this map. Actually, I won't. Yes.
I always, without fail, get betrayed by the forced march part at the end. Like, it doesn't seem to matter how well I think I've set up, I will always march directly into the poop.
Yeah. It's supposed to march your character directly forward, but it... Relative to what?
Relative to the last server tick before it goes.
Right.
So, yeah, it's basically when you see its cast bar finish, at that point, it's the direction you're facing there, because the server will tick then. So the fact that it uses the ability is not relevant to the direction you're facing. It's when its cast bar finishes.
Right.
And most of the tricksy abilities in Final Fantasy behave that way. It's something that traumatizes seriously a lot of WoW players, because WoW is the opposite. WoW's abilities go off when the ability visibly goes off, whereas the Final Fantasy, it goes off when the server ticks at the end of a cast bar, which, while it is not as good as World of Warcraft's approach for verisimilitude, it is much, much more consistent when it comes to learning how to handle a mechanic.
Yeah. There we go. So yeah, that was fun. Got through that and did the next couple of story ticks, and that's where unfortunately I had to. Yeah, that's been a good fun week.
I crave going back to play some Final Fantasy, but I just don't have the time. I've got all those other games on my plate.
So good, and they're just doing so well with everything at the moment too.
I've got a full expansion worth of content, because I'm pretty sure I own Shadowbringers. I just never had the chance to actually play it.
Yep.
And I haven't finished the Stormblood story yet. I've done like I've done the main story quest, and I haven't done the parts that follow. So I really want to get in there and play some, but I also really want to play Monster Hunter Stories. And I want to play games, but I've got to work all the time. And it sucks.
Yeah. I haven't played any Monster Hunter, unfortunately. Well, actually, that's not quite true. I got up and took out the Naga Cougar and unlocked multiplayer battles.
Yeah, that's where I left off as well.
Yeah. We'll talk about the other thing I did this week, and it's something I haven't done in a very long time, and that is watch TV.
Why?
Why is
The
because the locally recorded series of Survivor has gone to air.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, is right. So there's a lot of little stories that have been floating around town about things that have happened, like how a snake wrangler threw a snake at the host. The host did not want to be here, by the way. He was on the first plane back to America as soon as recording wrapped.
You need to send us an Honest Bob's link or post it in the Discord at some point, so we can forever have your area of the world through the lens of this Survivor show.
Oh yeah. So if you go, oops, horribly wrong, and everything's gone terrible forever. Okay, hang on. Yeah. So about that, if you want to watch it, you can watch it via VPN, and it's on the Channel 10 website. It's bad because it's Survivor. Survivor is generally awful.
Yes.
It's not so much a game about surviving; it's a game about basically stabbing everyone in the back and being a
In-group politics and how much can you play for the camera, so the producers will say you don't get to get voted off.
Exactly. So now
I thought all those shows were basically about fornication.
Yeah, there's a good amount of that. Well, yeah, not so much with Survivor. Because everyone's too busy trying to screw each other over in more of a metaphorical sense than a physical one. So, yeah.
I'm remembering this one's the only Survivor episode special or something like Survivor that I watched recently was they took a group of men and a group of women, dumped them on separate islands, and had them try and survive.
Okay.
And after about the halfway point, they sent some of the men and some of the women over to each other's island. The men got to the women's island. And they're like, "Where's your hut? Where's your food area?"
We don't have
They didn't have anything because they were just bickering with each other and couldn't do anything because they needed to all come to a consensus first.
Yeah, you get some shows where they actually do survive them, and some groups they'll put out there and all they do is just argue. They accomplish nothing. I kind of actually enjoy watching those because, oh yeah, these people are out in the wilderness and they're gonna die.
Is that going to script or off script?
Don't know. But in the case of Survivor, it is 90% fake. So things like the very first episode, they're doing flyovers of this region, and they pop up in the corner that is currently 45 degrees Celsius. No.
How many of these people are from the New England areas of America and were in like bikinis and banana hammocks the whole time?
Yeah, there's a couple. They're all Australians, well, except for the poet. Poet was American.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, these are all Australian people, and they are walking around wearing Australian banana hammocks. Thank you very much.
Is this somehow worse than the usual banana hammock?
Slightly smaller.
How?
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to know.
If you get any smaller, you go from a hammock to a Speedo.
Yes. So,
You must respect the budgie smuggler.
no, you must not. You must reject the budgie smuggler. Right, where was I? So, yeah, just trying to fight orcs at the same time as doing this is not easy. Whoops. Don't have traps.
I'm just stealing Jaggy eggs.
Jaggy eggs? Why you bully Jaggy?
Well, because it's the only one that's fleeing back to the gym. I mean, to the whatchamacallit, the den.
Yeah, that's true. Jaggy retreats to den if you look at.
So lazy.
Yeah. So yeah, all these little bits and pieces that they keep showing and saying about the region are just blatantly not true. They seem to have this love obsession with just one snake. Every time they need a shot of a snake, they just use this one. I think it's a diamond head or something.
Or do they just like have it in a box
No, it's
at
on
the
the
site,
ground.
And no, I mean like they have it in a box, and it's like, oh, we need the snake, and they'll tip the snake out on the ground and take a shot of it. Okay, put the snake back in the box.
Oh, it's slightly worse than that. They just did that once, and then they just keep reusing the footage.
I see.
So a diamond head or a diamond back?
Diamondback. Diamond head is something different.
I mean, they all have kind of teardrop shaped heads, but that was the name of my little league t-ball team when I was like 5. Was the Diamondbacks?
Nice.
Diamond
yeah,
Head is stage on the current FGO event that I never want to repeat.
Yeah, it's been a laugh. Like we know, anyone who's been in this region for a while knows the terrain and basically knows exactly where they've been recording. Now that we're seeing the footage, and they're doing things like, oh no, they're standing on the edge of the local dam, and there is a crocodile in there. Totally, you're honest. And they cut to a shot which they shot up in Normanton, about 400 kilometers north, just to show a saltwater crocodile. We don't get saltwater crocodiles this far south. We get
You
fresh
don't get
waters
water that
occasionally,
fast south.
Yeah. So, it's just been Planet U people for all.
Can the salt waters venture upstream into freshwater, or are they actually like physically constrained to estuarine areas?
I think they can to a point. They don't. I think they have to. They do eventually have issues. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, it's and that I will stop doing this for the moment. Okay. Yeah, so they're pretending there's a croc there. It's not. And it's the same footage of the croc they keep reusing. They keep complaining how hot it is, except there's not a drop of sweat on anyone. And of course, you have the contestants themselves, who are the usual grab bag of completely asinine personalities. The thing is I've met a few of them while working, and yeah, their personalities on screen are almost completely fake, as you might expect. I am not under an NDA, can you tell?
So it's like they actually have, when they apply, is it actually like a casting call and they've got characters that they're applying to play?
I'm not entirely sure.
It's true for some reality shows where you basically audition and present a character.
Yeah, I think there must be an element of that. It is
That, or they get handed mandates down after they've auditioned as people and have to act a certain way by their casting coach.
Yeah, congratulations. You've established who you are as a person. Now you're a parody of yourself. Enjoy!
Yeah, these traits that make you a relatable, actual human being, let's just edit those out. Yeah, no. You're the crazy man that runs around naked.
Yeah. The only believable one is the career politician they've got on there, who is just greasy.
Is it actually a politician?
Yeah, he's a Labour politician.
Oh, well, that explains the grease then. Unfortunately, having been on television means that politician will get a lot of votes if they stand for a particular seat.
No, I don't think he will in this case.
Oh, really? It shines that wonderful.
He is not being portrayed in a positive light.
Like, I remember in the New Zealand Survivor, there was a guy from Taranaki who got on it, and he was actually quite popular because he was sort of a no-nonsense strongman for the party, as it were. And he immediately got elected to council seat.
Okay. He must have been one of the heroes of the piece rather than one of the villains.
I think that partly it was probably because he was the most New Zealandy of the contestants.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to the other ones who were mostly Jaffas. Which, for those that don't know, is a New Zealand acronym, JAFA, just another effing Aucklander.
Yeah, probably.
I can't make Rathian retreat. It does not want to.
Because Rathian doesn't like you, Matt.
Oh,
doesn't want to be your
you
friend.
can't make it retreat. That explains a lot.
Ow.
So how do I get one then?
Asking nicely.
Oh, hold on. Am I looking at the wrong screen? This menu is very difficult. Okay, no, that was a boss Rathian, which is different to another kind of Rathian. The other kind of Rathian, yeah, it says attack it with a. Oh, you got to be joking! Come on, man. You can't
Come on, man.
make Rathian retreat to its den unless you hit it with a Rathalos kinship skill.
That's annoyingly specific.
It is. It is extremely annoying. And I don't know whether Razewing Ratha counts as a Rathalos or not.
I don't know.
I don't even know what type of monster he is. Like, what's his preferred attacks?
Ratha in the previous one was actually very fluent. He leaned towards power, but he was a bit more adaptable than the average monster. It's
I have
part of
to
what
say,
made him so ridiculously broken. And
I feel really sad every time I look at Razewing Ratha because
chicken wings.
yeah, he's got those tiny little wings, and it's not his fault he can't fly. He tries so hard.
Chubby chicken wings. Although to be fair, when he gets his proper wings, it's like holy.
Yeah, I guess good things come to those who wait or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna let there. Reality TV, as we all knew beforehand, learned absolutely nothing of it. Is complete bollocks. It's all lies.
Yeah. Yeah, I genuinely don't understand the people that watch this stuff on the reg.
Yeah. Like some
It's
of it
like-
can be fun
Do
to
they really
watch.
watch it, or do they just like turn it on and then their jaw goes slack and they start to drool and
That
then
one.
they switch off?
There are people like my aunt or my mother that will watch it with full attention. Like, we would watch an anime we're really into.
Huh. Are you supposed to like discuss it by the water cooler or something?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Are you supposed to complain about how vapid the characters are? Is that what you're supposed to do?
I don't think you're supposed to do that bit, but it's the water cooler demographic that they're looking for. Thing
Well, what they
is,
get
some
is
of the shows can be
housewives, it
fun,
seems
though.
like.
Yeah. Even though you know they're fake, some of the shows can be a lot of fun. But you got particularly this old breed of reality TV shows like Big Brother and stuff, which are asinine.
I mean, I don't get any of them. My family, in particular, watches the reality TV shows about a specific group, or the Bachelors, or the Married After 12 Days shows and stuff.
Oh, I hate those ones.
Just the absolute bottom of the barrel.
You people don't exist. What are you doing? Stop it.
Well, you
Like-
were the one that told me that South Park episode about the murder porn was actually a real thing.
Oh yeah, totally. They will watch that with complete attention to the screen. Like, this is the most riveting thing ever, and it's totally doing something new and interesting every single time. I just don't get people like that.
Television.jpg.
Mm-hmm.
Don't television, folks. It's bad for you.
Yeah, people mourn the death of TV.
I don't. I don't think I've
don't.
ever mourned. I've never mourned the death of TV. It couldn't die faster. Can I help it along? Does it need some help? I got a pillow here.
Stomp on its neck a little bit. Yeah, TV just it caused its own downfall. It's basically that.
Well, if you give people a choice and all you're offering is crap that you force people to have to watch because nothing else is on, the second a better option comes around, of course they're going to watch whatever they want to watch. And it's not going to be your garbage.
No, especially
Well,
when
I mean-
what you're watching is just so brain dead.
Well, I mean, what are the choices that people have got on television these days? I mean, they can watch reality TV or they can watch like
The news.
basically porn.
Some
And
channels, yeah.
the new generation of copycats of Game of Thrones, where everything has to be done mid coitus,
Yes.
and a whole
Yes.
bunch of feminist reboots of superhero shows.
Yeah, the stuff that even Netflix didn't want.
Like it's not merely a dying art form. It is like we are past the bread and circuses stage at this point.
Yeah. We just go back to the old way, doing things like a sketch comedy show. You know, a
I
fun
don't. But
story.
the thing is that sketch comedy would have to be the sketch comedy which contains jokes that you are allowed to make in the modern era.
Doesn't exist.
Well, I mean, in the modern era, all the jokes would be, look at Trump.
Oh, so Saturday Night Live again, basically.
Well, it'd just be John Oliver's show.
Ugh. He's such a greasy individual.
Yeah. What are the other? Get the occasional cooking show. Like there is a few bright points in terms of reality TV. Like I don't mind watching things like the Great British Bake Off. Because that's just basically people all laughing about cake. They're actually being nice to each other.
Well, I mean, I can't say that I watch a lot of television. Like, I feel like the impression I get is that every time I turn on television, it's the same show that's on. Well, one
Yeah.
of two shows. One of two shows. There are two shows. One of them is The Chaser. It's always on when I turn the television on, which is for those who don't know, it's a game show where it's like a trivia game show where there's like the contestants have to get answers right to outrun a quote expert unquote who is also trying to answer the trivia questions and overtake them in the number of correct answers.
Okay, I was thinking of completely different The Chaser.
And the other show that's always on when I turn the television on is Antiques Roadshow.
Oh, yeah. When
Which
you
is
want to feel old.
which is always on. Like no matter what time of day, if you turn on the television, Antiques Roadshow will be on at least one channel.
If you are willingly
Pawn Stars
watching
is the US version of that.
Pawn Stars,
Pawn Stars, or
I watched a bit of that,
PAWN.
and that was also staged as all get out.
Yes, it's just as fake as everything else, but it's the closest thing we have to Antique Roadshow in
It's
the
also
US.
ended because the old guy who owned the pawn shop died.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Did he get a jab?
No, he just died of death.
Antiques Roadshow seems like it has too much dignity to fake anything, but that could be just the aesthetic they're going for.
Yeah, like Antiques Roadshow is, here is an antique. Let us talk about this antique and its interesting history in a very British voice. Whereas Pawn Stars is motorbikes. So, not really the same.
Yeah, we don't have Antique Roadshow here, so
Yeah. I think you would, actually. But
we probably have it on one of the specialty channels, but it's not on any of the main channels that I'm aware of.
But yeah, to me, the Antiques Roadshow is synonymous with television now, so that's why I don't watch television.
It's always, my dad will watch reruns of Pawn Stars nonstop. It's murder porn or it's a fake game show, like reality TV fake game show. Like there's one for tattoo artists that my mother watches.
how did
My
you
aunt
tattoo
watched.
artists into a game show?
They have to compete on who can produce the best tattoo based on a theme.
Oh, those ones. So yeah, that
Yeah.
a lot is. There's a bunch of shows actually that are trying to mimic Bake Off, British Bake Off, and they completely avoid what made that show successful.
So it's basically like all of the non-British versions of Top Gear.
Yeah, like they did this pottery one, and there's this sewing one as well. But as soon as the Americans touch it, like the British will do something and they'll be basically sitting around making stuff and chatting and helping each other, and at the end of the day, they judge who made the best thing. But
That ain't how Americans do things.
that's not how Americans do things. Because that's why those shows are popular, is because they're so refreshing. It's just people doing a thing that they like to do. And there's a bit of a competition element around. But then the Americans get hold of it, and suddenly you have the bitch, the whore, the Chad, capital letters.
Well, now it is the bitch, the whore, and the British cigarette.
Yeah.
Bundle of sticks.
Fruit. Yeah, there's almost always one flamboyant
In fact,
guy.
there's more than one nowadays. It's usually half the cast is the bundle of sticks, and one guy will be the normie that gets voted off first, from what I've seen.
Being a straight white male.
Overly flamboyant people.
Well, it's all fake anyway.
It is
Nobody
completely
actually acts that way unless they want attention.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's all those, fun little TV shows about making a thing, and the Americans basically ruined it.
Yeah, like my favorite part of Top Gear was always the challenges.
Yeah. Actually, that's another good comparison. Top Gear compared to American Top Gear.
I've never seen American Top Gear.
Don't watch
So-
American Top
Have
Gear.
you seen the British Top Gear?
Very, very little.
It's like good pure entertainment television. Even if you don't know jack about cars, you aren't a
don't-
motorhead, and you don't know anything about that stuff, it's still thoroughly good entertainment from top to bottom.
Generally, I don't care about the cars too much, but the dynamic that the three hosts have going together is just so much fun to watch. Actually, the other bit of TV we have watched over the last few weeks is Jeremy Clarkson's Farm, where it's basically Jeremy Clarkson trying to run a farm. But
Yeah, I've
it says
heard
it all
that
on
that's
tin.
really good. Like, I don't see praise for television shows generally on social media except for that show.
Yeah, it's because he does just about everything wrong. He ultimately fails, but he had such a good time along the way, and he's actually quite genuine about things.
Well, I mean, he's sort of old school British. It's like the thing with British celebrities is that a lot of them are old and still British. They haven't been Americanized yet. So
Yeah.
you get like I think that the sort of the example is probably John Cleese. He's still an urbanite. He's a celebrity and he's wealthy, but he's still British.
Very British.
And as a result, he's been cancelled. The same with Clarkson.
To be fair, he did put out a gigantic twit longer, basically telling the wokies to sod off. in
Which is the
very
only
colourful
appropriate
language.
thing to say to them, TBH.
Yes. It was very colourful. He did not hold back one teeny weeny bit. And he actually did make a few good arguments about a lot of things. I can't remember what he actually titled it, so I can't point people.
I'm sure if you search John Cleese twit longer,
Yeah, John Cleese
You-
woke rant or something should come up.
Well, it's ultimately he's making the same argument from a British perspective that you will have seen a lot of conservatives make from the American perspective in your own country, because it's basically about I don't know the particular rant that Fern is referring to, but based on the other stuff that I've seen Cleese say in sort of recent years, it's probably just focused largely around how love of country has pretty much been made illegal.
There's a good element of that in there. Yeah.
I mean, that's not wrong. If you like the country you're a part of, that's fascism.
Not even love, just like.
If you are slightly favorable to the country you were born in, that's fascism.
Well, that's been the great project of the global left, has been to make patriotism synonymous with fascism.
They got Twitter as their most powerful tool.
Yeah,
Well,
which is
it's-
strange because almost nobody uses Twitter.
A
Like,
lot
by
of
the
people are getting
numbers?
abandoning Twitter actively.
Well, the thing is that they didn't use Twitter to begin with. Like, people at large, Twitter's user base is very, very, very small compared to any of the other social media things. You compare them to Instagram, you compare them to Facebook, you compare them to any of the Chinese ones. It doesn't matter who you compare them to. Twitter is babies. It's very, very small. But for some reason that nobody really has come clean about or knows, I don't know which, every single government, every single politician, they all make accounts on Twitter exclusively. And it's not because Twitter has the big user base. It's like someone at some point decided that Twitter was simply going to be the microblogging platform of, every administrative power in the world.
Yeah, totally not suspicious either with the reveal that the U.S. government is actively encouraging social media companies to do their bidding.
It's the specifics of that are unclear, and I think honestly, I do think that Donald Trump's lawsuit is going to get BTFO'd in court because I don't
Yeah.
trust the courts at all. But the reality is that the press conferences given by the Biden administration should be sufficient for an open and shut case.
Oh, that one over the last week has been circulating.
Yeah, no, the thing that surprised me about that is it's being circulated by normies.
It's because it's hilarious. In all
Well-
the wrong ways.
Yeah, it's like Trump says, "I'm suing you for this." Oh yeah, we totally do that thing.
But it's okay when we do it.
Yeah, it's
In fact,
just
it's for
them.
your own good.
It is literally just them flexing how much the court system is going to be corrupt and how it's going to get BTFO'd.
Isn't there some saying about tyranny done for one's own good being the worst kind or something? There's some
Yeah.
famous saying about it.
That sounds
You can
like
justify
something I've heard
anything with
before.
that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Ugh.
so that's my week,
See the Koof lockdowns.
which went off rails.
Oh, your country's melting down.
Again.
Oh yes, a C.S. Lewis quote. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep, his cupidity may at some point be satiated, but those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience.
C.S. Lewis is really underrated these days because wasn't he a Christian? He was the guy that wrote the Narnia books, right?
He wrote Mere Christianity, he wrote the Narnia books, he wrote Problem of Pain, he wrote Abolition of Man, he wrote a lot of things. Abolition of Man is really, really good, but it's very hard to find a copy now.
One out of print.
It's been
Well-
printed and reprinted many, many, many times, but I haven't been able to get a hold of it. I'd really like to read the whole thing. It's not very long. It's a sort of like a very long essay rather than a book, but it's extremely good.
Vol, what have you been up to this week?
Not a lot. It's been busy at work, and I've spent most of my time working. A lot of late finishes and that sort of thing, clearing up paperwork. We're dramatically understaffed through resignations over the past month.
The normal then.
The normal, yeah. Not much has changed. Things are business as usual, which means that I'm being harried left, right, and centre to try and keep everything running in the way it's supposed to. But yeah, so I haven't had much time for video games, and most of what time I have had has been eaten alive by FGO Summer Rerun, which is, a murderously grindy event. And thankfully, it's less murderously grindy than last time because everybody's got their CEs from last time, which has sped up the process somewhat. That's not really a solution to my problems, but it made the whole thing proceed a bit faster than it would have otherwise, for which I am thankful. I haven't cleared out the shop. I doubt I will because I don't think I can face grinding this event much more. But yeah, I enjoy the event generally. It's just that it's very demanding of your time in a lot of ways.
Do we know if the next one's going to be as bad?
I don't remember people talking about it being remarkably atrocious. It certainly hasn't become famous for its abusively grindy nature, so it's probably not too bad, I want to say, though it might not be wise to make that particular assertion. I don't know if it's definitely going to be the next event, but it certainly will be. And the summer events are generally grindy. Like, that's just the way that they are, typically. It's the Vegas event. So it's going to have a sort of a casino.
Gambling one?
Yeah, it's got a casino type of approach to things. But I don't know how that actually plays out in terms of how long it takes to do the thing. But I don't know. I think that they will probably I think that it was probably throttled because it was probably throttled back a bit because what happened in Japan is what's going to happen here, which is you have summer backing on to summer, and because summer well for us 2020 burns so many people out, they probably didn't go as hard for the 2021 event, I think, because they would have seen a drop in participation if they had. I suppose that they are leaning for participation on the fact that the upcoming summer event is one of the very few Merlin rate up banners, and all the people that have missed him and still want him are basically going to be dogpiling that banner. Plus, Berserker Musashi, who is one of the 2 best arts Omni farmers in the game.
Also Murica.
Also Murica. So yeah, and I guess Okita's swimsuit as well, which is a meme, so lots of people roll for it. But
The meme's had time to die now that it's been revealed for a while, though, so I don't know if it'll do as good in the US.
Well, it's
Or in the
probably
West.
not, but I mean, Okita is still a very, very popular character, so it's probably not a total lost cause. But speaking of, I pulled her in the GSSR, but I still haven't leveled her up or used her at all. But
Her assassin version, I think it was okay when the game came out for like the only quick single target saber there was, but I haven't heard anybody talk about how good she is.
Okita Saber is sort of a workhorse, quick single target, because even if she's an old servant who's designed in an old way without much in the way of bells and whistles, there's really not much to compete with her, generally speaking. Like, she's just going to be the tool that people reach for to do that job in general. I mean, you'll still find people who have found ways to make, like, Caesar more powerful than her or whatever. But generally speaking, like, she's the preferred tool for the job when all you want are big numbers up front. If you need a bit more flexibility, most people would probably go for, like, Fran, Summer Fran, or someone like that. But generally speaking, for the longest time, she's going to just be the go-to for, I need a big number in the Saber class, and I need it now. I just want to whomp something. Yeah, she doesn't really. She's never really been, magically good, and she's also not like ever been especially terrible or anything. So yeah, and her built-in steroids in her kit after her strengthening are just like staggeringly high. So she very much is in that situation where she brings one big number which ignores defense at the front and ends the fight. So her biggest weakness, I would say, is probably the fact that she's not really terribly compatible with break bars. Like, you're pretty much better off with a universal servant with a bit more flexibility than someone who just specializes in bringing all the quick up front. But I mean, she was basically a goddess early on, because if you needed to kill a lancer, you could just put all power to the front guns and blow them away. But now that break bars are a thing, that's not really a good strategy. I mean, it's not like she doesn't apply a pretty decent defense debuff immediately afterwards, and she generates a lot of crit stars and so on and so forth for a saber. Like, she's not by any stretch a bad servant. It's just that she's very no frills. She doesn't really have any gimmicks that draw a discussion or draw the eye in any way, and her passives are really, really almost comically bad. Like, she's got riding E, which means that she's a quick servant with a 2% quick effectiveness passive. It's like, no, not really. She also has magic resistance E, which is pretty much just a concession to the Fate universe tradition that sabers tend to be a bit resistant to magic, rather than because there's any relevance to it. So it's just like, there's a 10% chance an incoming debuff will miss, so you can't count it for anything. It's basically useless. But she's popular with people who like feet. We'll just leave it there.
What?
Well, have you not seen her Final Ascension? A classic
Oh boy.
art?
Oh,
Foot shot.
Yeah,
okay.
like
Let's
it's
see. Okita, Final Ascension.
I guess I'll drop,
Oh, yes. I see why
Okay.
people.
I'll drop it in live show chat. Feet. And I think she's probably drawn a non-trivial amount of her popularity from that. Because people are degenerates.
People are.
Why do people like feet?
I don't really get the foot thing at all. Like feet are like the gross version of hands. So I don't really understand. But yeah, some people are into that, I guess. But yeah, so I am eagerly slash apprehensively anticipating the Las Vegas summer event. Lots of people are anticipating getting the welfare servant because welfare sabers are precious and rare, especially ones that are really good single target nukers. And Ui saber is definitely a very solid welfare saber. So yeah, a lot of people very keen for that. She's got a Noble Phantasm battery. I mean, come on. Welfares with MP batteries are like gold plated, pretty much. But yeah, I really want to progress in Monster Hunter Stories, but I just haven't been able to sit down and do it. And that's partly because of a simple lack of time, and partly because every time I do start playing it, I end up being staggeringly unproductive because I'll just get sidetracked and start grinding, which is really, 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 I can't emphasize this enough, do not do as I have done, because that's a really bad idea. I just can't seem to quite suppress the compulsion. Because nothing that you do in the story is going to matter worth a damn once you get into high rank. There's no reason to grind anything. You don't need to grind to finish the story. You might as well just enjoy the story and proceed along at the pace that the game sets for you. Unfortunately, I experienced this compulsion and can't stop farming eggs. So, so yeah. Try not to get too attached to any of your monsters. Apart from maybe, I don't know, Razewing Wrath are probably scales. But most of your monsters, if you become attached, you're merely going to have to get a replacement goldfish once you hit high rank. So, yeah. So I've actually invested, relative to the small amount of free time I've had lately, I've actually invested a reasonable amount of time in Monster Hunter Stories. The problem is that all of that has been horribly unproductive. So, yeah, I've unlocked multiplayer, much like Fern has, but haven't really done much more than that. I'm going to try and use my day off to discipline myself to push forward with the story and not get too sidetracked, but it's hard. It's hard not to get sidetracked because it's a Monster Hunter game, and the Monster Hunter loop is very, very sort of intrinsically alluring. That sort of accumulation of parts to construct new gear and go and hunt more monsters and so on. But yeah, I just need to somehow resist temptation to I'll just try and get one more egg and see if I can max out that skill on the inheritance thing, despite the fact that all of those skills are low tier garbage compared to everything in high tier. Therefore, I'm just wasting my time. At any rate, oh man, I just went to the stables and it turns out I've got 9 eggs that I just haven't hatched, and most of them are garbage. Oh well, gene fodder, I guess. But yeah. Like I've said, I really, really want to play Final Fantasy XIV. I feel the urge, the impulse, especially with everybody talking about it. Like I always want to play it, generally speaking, but it's even worse with lots of people talking about it. Problem is, I don't know exactly what I'd do when I started. Like my craving has always been to proceed through the story at sort of a reasonably relaxed pace with Fern and Ari, but neither Fern and Ari are ever playing when I'm playing, so it just never seems to happen. Especially because
Scheduling is hard.
it doesn't. Well, it's not just scheduling; it just doesn't seem to really fit Ari's preferred pace of play.
Mm.
As a
Yeah,
game?
it really doesn't. It's my biggest problem with the game. Is I want if I'm playing an MMO specifically and building an MMO to a point where I want to play with other players, the story is such a necessity in Final Fantasy XIV that it puts a big damper on the way I normally play these type of games.
Yeah.
And needing to sit down and watch the story just slows me down to a point where I'll get distracted and lose interest.
Shame, because the story is really good.
Yeah, it's just
most people
it's
hold
in
it
an
to be
MMO.
like the best Final Fantasy story in the modern era.
If it was a single player Final Fantasy game, I would like it a lot more. But the fact that it's an MMO and there's the nag in the back of my head nonstop, I need to get caught up so I can play with people. I need to get caught up so I can play with people. But I need to pay attention to the story.
You're never gonna get caught up in Final Fantasy 14. It's impossible.
It just doesn't happen.
Nobody has
Yeah.
that much time in the day.
So it's just a awkward feeling when I play Final Fantasy 14. It's hard to describe how it is because normally I will just stick my face to the grindstone and go and not stop until I'm done. They can't really do that in Final Fantasy 14, especially when the story is gated by having to wait on the and just do the dungeons and look up the dungeons guides each one individually as you're going up. Which I don't have something against on principle. I think that's fine. It's just something that goes against the way I play games these days.
Fine. Yeah, I'll hopefully some time. Just keep chipping away at the story because I've hit the big element of the Stormblood story where it's like, okay, we've actually no, not quite. Actually, it's here is this potato-y catfish thing.
Oh man, if I wanted to even try to play Final Fantasy 14 again, I'd have to go through Mog Station.
Yeah, Mog Station is the biggest detriment to Final Fantasy.
Oh, why Mog Station? Why? Why does it have to be a thing?
It's just
Bad.
I'm just sitting here thinking about I could stick my nose in it. I gotta go through Mog Station.
There's been a few times where I've actually wanted to fire it up and just couldn't be bothered dealing with Mog Station at that point. So, yeah, okay, it hooks your subscription in through Steam. That's nice. I like that. Having that option. But
Just let us do it through the Steam client or something, for the love of God.
You gotta jump
Just
through all these other hoops to get Mog Station to do it.
Just anything other than Mog Station.
Yeah, I don't see why they don't just like knuckle down and rebuild that whole thing to something more usable. But the thing is, the and this is sort of like a weird cultural intuition that I may or may not think I have, is it sort of kind of maybe seems to me like every Japanese site seems to be like this.
They do. And not just their websites that seem to have this. I'm not exactly sure what you'd call it. Kind of old school design, I guess.
It does seem like we're at a Web 1.5 design with most Japanese websites. Mog Station, however, is pre-Web 1.0.
Oh yeah, Mog Station is just generally.
Well, no, it's not Web 1.0 though. It's just got like Web 1.0 logic and sensibilities underneath the incredibly bloated Web 2.0 sort of weird Java-esque shell.
Ah, the worst of both worlds.
Yeah. Like, I generally prefer the Web 1.5 approach where there's a title bar with links to everything and no Flash or Java or anything like that on the screen. No HTML5, just put it on the page. Make it easy to navigate. But modern websites don't do that, and Mog Station doesn't do that either, even though there is a bar with options to click from. Good luck finding the cancel subscription button.
The cancel subscription button doesn't exist. It's a piece of plain text at the bottom of, I think it was the payment methods list.
Yeah, it's like in some sub-menu of the account information page, there's a link to it in the actual body of the text.
Yeah. Yeah, it's plain text to find that link, and then plain text again to cancel it. And it's small. Very, very. Yeah.
It's It's a mess, that Mog
Although,
Station.
to be fair, at least when you do find it and click it, there's a case of, okay, you're cancelling? Okay, thanks, bye. It's not like Blizzard where they point a light in your eyes and say, why are you desubscribing?
The cynical end of me says this is Squeenix Corpo trying to discourage people from canceling by hiding the button.
Oh, everyone does that. So, yeah. At least when you do subscribe, it's just, you're gone. You're finished. You don't get interrogated. You don't get a follow-up email saying, come back. You don't get a picture of a crying puppy.
With a questionnaire underneath it.
I'm getting real sick of receiving emails from Blizzard. I gotta say.
Oh, I
They
have
don't
them all
ever
flagged as
stop.
spam.
Stop.
I have Blizzard's auto mail accounts all set up to dump in the spam box immediately.
I've set up a filter so a lot of Blizzard stuff goes in the spam box, but not all of it. Some of it still gets through.
Oh, I've manually registered all the emails that they send
Yeah,
to make sure I don't.
That.
When I was on my I'm done with WoW stick and WoW is bad for you, I don't need any temptation to come back. I manually set up every single email Blizzard uses to spam their customers as spam.
Mm-hmm. I don't mind it when a game, like after maybe 6 months, they say, hey, here's some new content. If you're interested, come on back. But it's not every just 6 months with Blizzard. It's like every week.
Yeah, they don't stop.
Like Final Fantasy, I think when I was unsubscribed, I got one email total from them, and that was announcing Endwalker.
Yeah, I get emails from them only if they are saying, oh well, we are currently having a free promotion, so you've effectively got a week or 2 weeks of subscription for free. So like I actually appreciate those, because if I'm got the urge to play, then I know that I am actually able to at that particular point in time. So there is a certain amount of value to that. But Blizzard is just advertising crap, and yeah, I don't really want to hear from them.
Between
like,
an email and spam.
Yeah, they
No, we're
inevitably
ragging on
want you
Blizzard
to...
again. Well, let's stop ragging on Blizzard for now, because we've got to rag on Blizzard later.
But I don't want to buy their latest mount bullcrap.
Oh,
Like every time they release the mount, they send me an email about it as though I give it toss.
Are you weren't interested in that retarded horse? How about this retarded horse?
how about a retarded horse that undermines everything people stood for when they were asking for WoW Classic? How about that one? Yes, they did do that.
I don't doubt they did.
Yeah, they
It was
put
too
a
good to
retarded horse in
last.
the Burning Crusade, which you have to spend like $40, and it's Burning Crusade. Everyone seems to have it. It's bigger and shinier than anything else you get in the game.
How dumb can you be, Blizzard? Anyway, I'll save the ragging on Blizzard for later.
Yeah, because they dumb.
Not that it's a rare
Low-hanging fruit.
resource.
Yeah,
It's renewable.
it is. See a setup problem. Had time to pay.
I mean, if we actually were able to use like ragging on Blizzard for the stupid things they've done as an alternative energy source, maybe you actually could implement Biden's economy.
One that runs on magic.
Well, I mean, infinite free energy.
Yeah, magic. Alright. We should probably look at break soon.
Yeah, I don't really think I've got much else to talk about as far as my week goes, to my great shame, because I haven't done much with it. But when I've got nothing to do but sit in a hotel room with my Switch for several days this coming week, maybe I will make some progress at long last on Monster Hunter, and I'll be able to talk about how things go later on in the game.
Hopefully I'll
Alright.
sit down again. Having the drifting Joy-Cons is kind of putting me off wanting to use the Switch until I
I
get
thought you were
around
going
to...
to buy a Pro controller.
Yeah, I'm going to. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, I think that as far as the Switch is concerned, I might just go out and buy a speaker. like a separate speaker, so that I can plug it in and not have to try and graft the incredibly recalcitrant Switch hardware into the rest of my sound system, which is basically I've never had a more simple looking but practically problematic piece of hardware to try and plumb into the sort of web of electronics that is my bedroom.
At
For
least they
some
made the
reason-
jump to HDMI.
Yeah, they did, but unfortunately, it doesn't really serve my purposes very well as a sound channel.
Does anyone really use HDMI as a sound channel like that?
No, and it's well, there are some televisions that do, ones that have really fancy sound bars built into them, but
Yeah.
and then it's actually sort of reasonable. But the Switch, for some reason, I get a whole bunch of electrical noise coming through in various applications of their headphone port when using it as a line out, and I can't work out why. It's
Very weird.
it's some weird electronic crosstalk that's coming from something else, but only applies when used as a line out and doesn't seem to affect the headphone. Yeah,
Right.
the
I think I
USB
remember you mentioning this earlier when you were trying to solve the problem.
Yeah, and I never really did solve the problem. Instead, I used the HDMI into my monitor and then line out from my monitor to line into my PC and then use that to mix the sound. Unfortunately, I don't have an equalizer dedicated to the line in that allows me to deal with the incredibly tinny sort of high treble nature of a monitor line out. So it's a suboptimal solution, and it's not. I don't really have a travel solution, and I don't really like being forced to wear headphones all the time. So I think I might just buy a speaker. But I think Sony's Bluetooth speakers still have an auxiliary port because the Switch doesn't have Bluetooth. Obviously, that's what you want, a portable device with no Bluetooth. Obviously, yeah, as a piece of hardware, the Switch is a piece of junk. If it didn't have so many good exclusives, I would never have bought one. But yeah. I think I might buy a speaker. That way I've got something to travel with me as well for all of my other sound purposes. Because while there are USB ports associated with the Nintendo dock, they are functionally non-functional. Like you can charge things,
That's about it.
but yeah, it doesn't appear to be able to interface with any other kind of USB device on Earth.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what they're for.
They're for first party proprietary controllers, and that's it.
That's about it.
Well, the thing is that I was a bit mystified because it's got the two standard USBs on one side of the dock, but if you crack open the panel on the back of the dock, there's another USB port between the power socket and the HDMI socket.
That one is for the LAN dongle.
Is that what it's for?
Yeah.
So does the new dock just not have a port there?
Probably not. If the LAN dongle is built into the actual hub for the new one now.
Why do they have to be so asinine? Like Nintendo, I know you have star power, no pun intended, but come on. Anyway, we'll take a break.
All right, folks.
Let's do that.
Here's some music. We'll be right back. And we're back.
Yeah. So that was Vol's week pretty much done, I believe.
Yep.
All right, Ari, have at it.
All right. I got one game to talk about this week. But before I do that, I'll complain about work like I always do because it's starting to become tradition at this point. There wasn't a whole lot of work that needed doing this week, but there was a whole lot of setup for this coming week, where I'll be out of town at least 2 days. I'm thinking closer to 3 or 4 because I have to go to job sites. One of them is 2.5 hours away. One of them is 6 hours away. So that's 5 hours of one day gone and 12 hours of another gone just by driving. So that's going to be fun. And there might be 1 or 2 more I have to look at going at. So going to be very busy next week. And all that time out of the office that I'm driving is work piling up that I need to do when I get back. So, despite wanting to get ahead this week, I didn't really have much I could do yet, because all our jobs are kind of stuck either, quotes, waiting for purchase orders, or purchase orders already sent to the factory and waiting for the factory to build the dumb thing. So, it was an awkward week where I wanted to get as much done as I could to make this coming week as easy as possible. But I just couldn't because nothing was in a position to be done yet. I did have an episode this week where I had to write 2 engineers an essay in the notes of a quote I sent them because engineers are dumb and they only know how to copy and paste from their master spec if they don't know you personally. And their master spec is always wrong.
Well, that's because it's exactly equidistant from every actual spec. Like that, it's supposed to be sort of an average.
Yeah.
So it doesn't fit anything. It's just like it's not infinitely far away from anything either. It just doesn't quite work.
Yeah. So So I had to write. Let's count the sentences in this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 sentences in the notes of a 3-item quote.
That basically amounts to telling them to do their job.
Pretty much. You called for this thing in the schedule. It doesn't come anywhere close to meeting the provided flow rate of 100 GPM at 70 feet ahead. Therefore, we've quoted a 5 horsepower instead of a 1.5 horsepower pump, and a higher model number. And that's
get the job done.
And that's just the first note.
I mean, what happens if you actually sell them what they ask for?
Blame you later on when horribly wrong.
Yeah, we just wind up footing the bill on it and having to pay restocking fees and sell them another one. And we could force them to pay for it again, but they're never going to buy from us again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we could just eat it and tell them, well, you fucked up, but you ain't going to look good with your customer if you do that, and they're not going to buy from you again. And when you're in a pool of customers as small as ours is, which is maybe a couple hundred potential customers at any given time, we can't afford to have a customer just refuse to use us and start spreading a bad word around.
Sometimes you just need to save them from their own damn self.
Well, that's what you have to do every time. You have to be the guy that goes out there and, as politely as humanly possible, calls the engineer an idiot. So, yeah, that was this week at work. But when I wasn't at work, I was finishing up Scarlet Nexus. So I've had it for about 2.5 weeks now, and it's taken me that long to get through both playthroughs. But it's a very hard game to judge my actual playtime with, because I AFK'd to cheat, basically.
Okay.
So there's a mechanic in Scarlet Nexus that's very akin to social links in your personas and stuff, where you go back to base, and depending on your bond level with your various companions you can take with you into the field, you'll be able to go have a social link episode with them, and then see a special story event, and their abilities will get stronger in combat when you use them. But you could, to get this up, go out and grind up a gorillion materials to make 500 acoustic guitars to give to Kagero to jump that bond level up. Or you could put 2 characters in your active party, go to an active combat zone, run to a corner where no enemies spawn, and just go AFK. Because it counts time spent in your active party while in a combat zone as progress towards bond.
Even if you're just standing around doing nothing.
Even if you're just standing around doing nothing.
I'm goofed.
So, to save myself from having to do the ludicrous grind, I would AFK for hours with the game open, and just leave myself parked in the corner of a combat zone. So my actual playtime of the game is hard to find, but if I had to guess, the first story will take you about 15 hours if you thoroughly explore everything, and I did the bigger story first, which is Yuito's story. And your second playthrough will take you about 5 to 7. So you're looking at 25 to 30 hours tops, and that's if you explore everything. And that's a rough guesstimate because I can't accurately pick out how well my time was spent on each playthrough due to the aforementioned.
How much does
you're looking at a 90+ hour game if you don't do the AFK strat.
How about no?
Yeah, because you have to grind all those bonds up twice. And you could go grind out all the number of materials, but then if you use it on bond items, you won't have the materials necessary to buy all the new weapons as they become available, or buy all of the new plug-in chips that become available.
Right.
So, yeah, that was where I drew the line, because grinding in that game is not particularly fun. It is it's quite tedious, and I just did not want to do it, because the way grinding works is there are 2 types. There's enemy drops. You have specific enemy drops of that enemy and that variant of that enemy. So there are enemies called like pounds, for instance, which are little boxes that float in the air and have a protective shell over their head that shoot fireballs at you. And they have different variants of a pound. There's the session pound that explodes if it gets close to you. The basic pound, which just shoots fireballs at you, and the missing pound that sprays gas everywhere and makes it impossible to see anywhere. So you'll have one drop for the specific type of pound you're getting, a generic pound drop that drops from any pound killed, and then the generic enemy drops. And they all range in rarity from C, B, A to S. And you need a very specific combination to craft the things you need. And then those will just respawn if you just leave the zone you're in and go through a loading screen to a separate named area and then reload the area you were in by teleporting out and teleporting back in.
Adding.
So yeah, so you can grind enemies fairly quickly, or consistently, but you're going to be there a while because of the just insane drop pool of every single enemy in the game. And then the other problem is farming environment data. Every single map has, except for a couple of them that are unique to each character's story, have environment data that you have to collect to craft stuff. And this also goes from C to B to A to S. And they spawn in set locations on each map, but only once every 30 real-world minutes.
Oh, real-world time.
Yep. So, and which one spawns where is totally random, and how many you get's totally random. So farming is not an attractive prospect in this game because it's just a complete pain in the butt. So I took the cop-out method and just did the AFK strat.
Yeah. And grinding is on the table. It's
especially because despite this being an RPG with levels and stuff, it's an action game. And any action game, even if it has RPG mechanics, I'm inclined to focus more on the action game part of it. Just because you can make up for low levels by just getting better at the game. And I feel like getting too high a level trivializes the content. That doesn't necessarily help in this game, though, because this is clearly an RPG first, where it's meant to be at a point where you can overgrind yourself if you really want to. And some of the abilities are straight busted. So the way this game works is you play as either Yuito or Kasane. They have radically different playstyles with their melee attacks. Well, melee in air quotes with Kasane. She throws little swarm of daggers around around mid-range. And has more aerial attacks than Yuito does. Yuito is just Sword Boy. Yuito hits harder with his basic attacks, but they both also have access to psychokinesis, where they can grab random junk in the environment and chuck it at people.
right.
And you can weave these two types of attacks together to form your combo strings. They can also channel the power of any of their allies that they have a social link with for a brief amount of time. And it'll show a little timer for how long each one will last. And if it gets below 25%, you have to wait for it to recharge to 25% before you can activate it again. But you can turn them on and off at will. And some of these abilities are just completely busted. Like the invisibility one is absurd. The game introduces it to you like you're supposed to charge up the big backstab attack and just use it. And it doesn't seem that strong. It'll take out one big enemy, but that's not really helpful when there's a zillion of them. Instead, what you're actually supposed to do is just attack normally out of it with your psychokinesis attacks, and it does just as much damage as the big backstab, if not more. And you get to keep the full invisibility bar instead of wasting all of it. You can waste an entire room of enemies. There's stuff like the elemental moves that are just as busted by letting you insta-break enemies of certain elements. So there's not a whole lot of traditional action gaming skill that goes into this game, which is good because the combat is... These guys did Code Vein before, or most of the team has worked on Code Vein before.
Yes.
And you can tell because they have the same kind of character movement, just sped up. Code Vein was already a relatively fast game for a Souls-inspired game. But Scarlet Nexus tries to speed that up even more, but it keeps the same movement quirks as a game that you have to pay attention and play more methodically like a Souls-like game. So things like doing a 180-degree turn involve your character having to stop, pivot, lose all momentum, and then start again.
Ick.
And this feels really awkward, especially when you're trying to hit an enemy that you have targeted behind you.
Why has no one pointed that one out during the...
Yeah, that's an awkward decision. Also, the ability to express yourself in combos is very limited. You have a 3 to 5 hit combo depending on who you play and how much their tree you have upgraded on the ground, and that's it for their melee combo. And you can weave in psychokinesis attacks to enhance the combo as you go. The other thing is that the psychokinesis attacks are only as strong as the crap you have laying around to chuck at dudes.
Oh.
There's never an environment that doesn't have crap to chuck at dudes, but in general you can break down psychokinesis stuff into 4 categories: small, medium, big, and special. If you chuck a car at somebody, it's basically going to instantly drop the brake bar and you can do your one-hit kill finisher. If you chuck a vending machine at somebody, it's going to maybe get rid of their whole brake bar and do a big chunk of damage. If you chuck something small, it's mostly just going to tickle them and get their attention.
So if you end up fighting inside like a tissue paper store, it's not going to be good for you.
No, but all the environments give you a pretty good mix. And then there's special stuff where you can pick up items with the left trigger instead of the right trigger, and they have special QuickTime events, which make me groan every time I see them, and do a whole lot of damage or do a very special effect, and may or may not hit a wide area even, but take way longer to do. So, and you're limited in the amount of them per encounter. So there's some decision making going on what to use them on in some encounters, but it just doesn't amount to enough. And for all these reasons and more, I recommend switching the game to hard mode immediately.
Oh, okay.
Because the game is just too easy otherwise. Because a lot of this stuff sounds like it leads to a deep, meaningful combat system, or could if it was given a bit more time. But the moves that you have access to are just too busted. And even on hard mode, invisibility, electrokinesis, or pyrokinesis, or clairvoyance will just allow you to clear whole rooms of enemies by themselves. So crank it up to hard immediately, so at least there's the threat of having to dodge attacks. If you're on hard, some of the medium tier enemies can at least kill you. On normal, they all enemies tickle. They give you a light massage.
God.
But yeah, so I definitely recommend doing that. The story is hard to go into because a bunch of the big reveals that are interesting are front-loaded fairly early, around chapter 3.
Okay, so you can't really talk about it without spoilers.
Yeah, so I won't go into any character reveals I won't go into any character reveals, period, with their secrets and stuff. And I won't talk about any concepts that come up after chapter 3. That should cover for most stuff. But basically, it's a world where it appears to be post-apocalyptic, but you live in a society that is still somehow surviving just fine with super advanced technology and is completely networked. And depending on which character story you follow, you either follow the monsters that are showing up with Kasane and how they're doing damage to the world around them, and how the governments of the world are involved in utilizing these monsters and fighting these monsters, or you follow Yuto's story, which is more about how the governments of the world are controlling people because their brains are all literally networked together constantly and connected directly to the internet.
That is what we call a bad idea.
Yeah. And the story goes to great lengths to explain how this is a bad idea and how immoral and terrible it is, and how this never crossed anybody's mind in this society until Yuito's team brings it up. Totally boggles my brain.
Yeah, you'd think someone would have said, hang on, this is a bad idea.
I'm sorry, have you guys not been alive for the past 2 years?
Oh, right.
But they all have their brains directly plugged into the internet and can receive force transmissions, and there's full re-education, brainwashing going on, and stuff like that. all the while there are monsters from a belt in the sky that descends up and down and cuts off all communication when it gets near, that also just poops out these horrific monstrosities everywhere.
Get the horrific monstrosities.
Yeah, so
Everyone's too busy beaming cat videos into them.
a point in both stories is early on a rather aggressively worded note that the media is just the enemy of the people. We need to find a way to placate the media and distract them and get them away from us because they're just pariahs and we hate them.
This is sounding.
So no matter which character you go with, anytime they call them the crows, the little media drones that do interviews show up, they're like, yeah, Arashi, can you go take care of those things? And she just kind of accidentally breaks all of them. And then finds the one that's left. And, oh, sorry, it seems all your others were destroyed during the fight. Why don't you just walk around with me? And then accidentally breaks that one while they're walking.
Whoopsie.
So I quite appreciated that. That wanted a few points off the bat. But I get the feeling I'm too old to be judging stories. I've got too much media and books and TV shows and video games stuffed in my head that it's hard to find out for me to accurately judge whether the story was any good or not. It doesn't feel particularly strong, but it doesn't feel exceptionally weak either.
Generally speaking, when it comes to your assessments of stories, I usually assume that they're pretty decent if you didn't actually throw your controller through the window. Like,
yeah,
anything that doesn't actually outrage you, I usually assume you're being overly critical of.
Yeah, so I didn't dislike anything that was presented in the story, but I felt there was a lot of missed opportunities. And there's
the thing is that you've got to understand about the people who write the narratives for video games. They're not writers. If they were good enough to write a story that could stand on its own merit as a story, they wouldn't be working in the games industry. They would be creating those stories and selling them. But instead they are a bit player in a larger team. So you're never going to get stories that are really, earth-shaking classics. And if you look through video game stories, you don't find that anywhere. You don't find anything of the level of sort of the great classics of literature in video games. And this is one of those things that I think the video games as art people just aren't willing to address, is that video games is a compromise art. The art is in the balancing act between the components and how you get them to work together, because no single part of a video game is ever going to be as good as a specialist medium focused on that.
Yeah. So the biggest complaint I have about this game is it sets up a lot of big concepts, and a bunch of it, and even a bunch of characters, are set up clearly as sequel bait or DLC bait. Where like in Kasane's story, she gets a unique boss fight that Yuito doesn't get against two higher ups in the OSF, and which is their military that fights the monsters. And these two higher-ups appear, and they have this ridiculously bombastic boss battle that's really fun, and probably one of the better ones in the game, and also one of the hardest ones. And then they just piece out of the story, and you never see them again in either route.
Okay.
Like, nothing's resolved at the end of that conflict. They just show up, cause a disaster that makes Kasane almost have a mental breakdown, and then you punch them in the face, and then they just peace out, and you never hear from them again. Nothing's resolved. They're clearly set up as DLC or sequel bait, and this is not the only instance of this. It's just the most egregious one in my head.
Please, writers, game developers, don't do that. Sequel bait is awful.
Well, you can do sequel bait. You can leave threads hanging. It's just when it's so obvious like that. I mean, I'm okay with a little bit of hanging threads left open for future entries in the franchise if it looks like it's going to do good.
Yeah.
But the way they handled that one in particular, and a few of the others, like the nature of what the others are, they're very cagey with. They give a whole lot of potential answers, but don't give anything concrete on the bits they do expound on. This is all clearly set up to be elaborated on in the future. Ooh, magical finger wiggling. So that's about where I stand with the story's main gripe. the other part is it just feels like an anime story, which is not a good or a bad thing.
Well, I mean, the
It's-
thing
it's-
is that it is an anime story. Like, did they not make an anime?
Yeah,
Yes,
like
they
they literally have an anime airing of the game right now, and if you punch in hidden codes in every single episode, you can get extra cosmetics that are really, really
I like it
ugly,
when they do that.
that are incredibly ugly. They're like, you know, the sandwich billboards people wear over their torsos? They're like those, except they have characters on them.
Why?
Well, the purpose of that is to get people into the idea of cosmetics so that they buy ones that actually look nice.
Yeah. The only cosmetics you can buy are a red outfit for everybody,
So far.
which is so far. But yeah. But it's a hard recommend because it's a game that feels like it's in a weird spot between genres.
Well, I think that the target demo though is just people who want to play an anime.
Yeah, if
I
you-
got that feeling from the trailer.
I don't think that it's supposed to be pitched at people who want the next Souls-like or whatever you're gonna call them these days. They don't.
Well, yes.
They aren't looking for the next. They aren't looking for the next Code Vein or whatever. They just want to play in one of the animes.
Yeah, and it does that fine. The closest video game analog would be character action mixed with RPG elements. It's it is set up in a mission structure. It's side quests. Oh, it's side quests. Okay, these things are awful. I forgot to mention these. At the end of every mission, you'll get a standby phase where you go back to the hideout and can give gifts to people, do social links, and other stuff. And also, you can go wander around the world and find side quests. Where these are, you have no idea. And there are only like 2 or 3 per chapter, so just go look up a guide. Because they're always in the city somewhere in the middle of nowhere. So go look up where they are and then go get them. And they will ask you to do very specific things, like go to a level and kill this very specific enemy. Kill 5 of them, even though only 2 of them spawn in this level. In this one very specific way that you may or may not have access to right now.
Oh, that's helpful.
And oh, by the way, you have to finish this side quest before the mission counter rolls over to the next phase. Otherwise, it doesn't count. And your rewards for these side quests are not worth it at all. There's stuff you can get from the shop for way cheaper and way less effort.
So completionist only.
Yeah, completionist only stuff. So I did them all. Not a single one of them was worth it. And they're all hot garbage. They add nothing to the story either. You can completely skip these if you just want to play the anime. In fact, I recommend you do so.
Right.
So yeah, if you like your animes, it's something you can look into. I've also I think that's it for Scarlet Nexus. I'll quickly mention I poked at the game Serathis has been talking about with Ender Lilies, but I have barely scratched the game. Like an hour and some change into it. So
Roughly what's
don't
it
have
about? Get that one.
it's you play as a little priestess who can carry the dead souls of blighted people around with her that she can summon as her way to do combat, because she's just a little girl. All she can do is a fairly pitiful roll and attack people, or not attack people, and jump. She can jump, do a very pitiful roll. I think that's all she can do. I don't think she has any other moves. Everything else is the spirits that she summons.
Okay.
So even your basic attacks are the incarnations of the dead souls you find and purify.
That's pretty cool.
And you can equip 3 of these at a time. Well, 2 sets of 3 of these at a time. And they act as your weapons and your special abilities to get around. And it's a Metroidvania style game where you explore the map, and as you get new souls that can do new things, you can unlock areas you haven't been to before. So its art, I like its art. It's really pretty for horrible monstrosities in watercolor. Well, not quite watercolor, but that kind of pseudo-painted aesthetic that's getting kind of popular these days.
Yeah, the kind of hand-painted, pseudo-hand-painted.
Yeah, that thing.
I don't mind that.
So, yeah, I actually like that art style. I think it's fine. It appears to take a lot more effort than like your CalArt or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
but it's got to match the game.
But yeah, and it works fine. I think it works really well when you pair it with super monstrous enemies. And the things in the game are truly super, I'm not sure grotesque is the right word, but just uncanny. They're very horrifying little monsters if you take them just on their visual design. And I think that I see what you did there, Missing No.
Off screen.
But yeah, join the Discord to get in on the live show chat. That's yeah. So I'm chewing through that game, and might have some stuff to talk about next week. I don't know if I'll have much time to make a serious dent in it. I'll try, but I do not know how much time I'll have next week. It's looking really busy.
All right, I believe. Email.
Yes, we do.
I'm killing orcs. Who's got an email?
I'll read it because you guys apparently never learned to read in school.
I can't read and multitask like 3-4 ways.
Dear No Excuses. So I finished Ender Lilies, but since I don't have wall jump and super dash and at least 3 zones remain unexplored, I'm fairly sure I found the early cop-out ending, where Lily the Lolly, at the behest of every spirit, just leaves this accursed kingdom since it's beyond help. Literally, there is no one left there, only mindless undead, 0 NPCs. Unusual for such early finishes, this is not a bad ending, it is perfectly reasonable to just go on about your merry way. The game then puts you back to the previous checkpoint so you can investigate the source of the corruption. Currently I'm on the final boss, so I will soon need to find another game until Silksong, or Deltarune. Seriously, what is Toby doing? Other than that, the only notable thing that happened was TennoCon 21, a 6-hour stream, 5 of which was faffing about. Sound design and the new magical girl Warframe Ureli, who is less girly than Nezha, and showcasing clan dojos. Those clan dojos actually looked really badass. And an hour showing the new war, the expansion first shown in 2019. It looked great. For the quest portion, you get to play a Grineer and Corpus Mook along others. I'm reasonably sure that the proper gameplay will be the usual Warframe fare. There has been nothing on the Duviri Paradox expansion, also shown in 2019. Warframe development was derailed by COVID and having to completely overhaul the Railjack and Kuvalich, aka Thought Nemesis system, expansions. But it still is the best free-to-play game with the most fair monetization, along with Haven and Hearth. Serathis.
Yeah. Every Warframe that comes out has a theme to it. I was not aware they were doing a magical girl themed one, but odds are it looks like some sort of semi-organic monstrosity magic. So that sounds pretty decent. I have to have a look. TennoCon is the big Warframe stream for those who haven't heard. And yeah, most of it's faffing about, as is the way.
Yeah. When are people going to stop pretending that COVID matters and go back to life as normal? Because the idea of all of these exclusively online only cons just is depressing to me. This isn't a con. This is not what it constitutes a con.
Although you do avoid the funk and the plague, so that's something.
Yeah, in exchange for also avoiding the con.
Yeah, and avoiding everything that makes a con worth going to.
I mean, the con funk and the con plague that everybody gets afterwards are the price of admission in every single con.
Yeah, but the funk is part of it.
Like you have to accept that as a reality going into these things. There are people that don't know what a shower is.
Yes. And also don't know that if you have a cold when you come to a con, stay at home.
Nah, they're going to come anyway.
Wash your damn hands.
If somebody's had a cold, if I've had a cold or am a little sick, and I've been planning to go to a con for months, the chances of me just saying I'll just suck it up and go and anybody that gets sick can deal with it are pretty high.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty common attitude, unfortunately. I get it totally, but yeah.
Like, that is where my stance on that is.
And that is
as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned, there will be others there with what I have or worse already. So I may or may not be the Vector, but it really doesn't matter in the end. Everybody's coming
Really
home
does.
with the punk.
Last 2 times I went to PAX, I left with the plug. It was only a 24-hour head bug usually, but still.
I don't think that there's actually any means to avoid that,
Nah.
because you'll get people showing up who are recovering from sick and therefore think they're no longer sick, or who don't know that they're sick yet.
It's
And
just
so,
basically one of those things that happens when you get a whole bunch of people all crammed into a small area.
yeah, people have long accepted that, from what I can tell, that this is just one of those things about attending one of these events, is that there's a better than even chance you're going to end up horribly sick.
And also that new magical girl Warframe that you mentioned, Serathis, looks more womanly than most Western AAA female protagonists. Just going to point that out.
Have you seen the big hoo ha about the new He-Man?
I try not to pay attention.
It's been all over social media lately.
I
Didn't
don't
they take
think I've seen
He-Man
that one.
and just make him like He-Man again? Or am I thinking of something different?
What? No.
Okay.
They go out of their way to actively humiliate any male character in exchange for making Teela the main character, who looks more manly than He-Man.
Got that one.
Yeah.
Pretty freaking appalling, to be quite
Stop.
honest. Like, it's not merely, oh well, this came out and it was bad and it ruined my childhood. It's like, this came out and they were deliberately attempting to ruin my childhood because they resent my very existence.
Stop ruining everything, everyone.
They can't.
Let's have something
They can't
that's
help it.
dumb and goofy and fun.
It gets them ass pats on social media, Fern. They can't stop.
Yeah, is not.
Social media was a mistake.
Social media is a mistake. It's not real. Everything on there is fake. Anywho, happy news. Happy news. We need happy news. Any happy
We
news?
don't have any. No.
Well, I mean, some might consider it the great fall of Blizzard to be happy news.
It's certainly entertaining.
Yes. So thank you for the email, Serathis. We're going to jump into the news now, I think.
Jump straight into the great fall of Blizzard. Oh boy. So yeah, we were discussing this before the show, and yeah, we figured it's not so much that these events are just coincidentally happening. It's that this is people jumping on to kick them while they're down.
It's Blizzard's own fault. They hired the type of people that are susceptible to this.
Yeah. So you've got 2 big drama bombs this week, including the ongoing exodus. The first being that the state of California has been investigating Blizzard for 2 years for unfair work practices, for various, I'm not going to say that word on stream, allegations. Let's call it, just go with sexual harassment as the umbrella term for it, shall we? And assorted other inappropriate goings on.
Well, they employ almost exclusively male feminists. Of course, they're going to have people who are sexual predators.
But some of it has been going on since Morheim's.
And even if by some miracle they found
conveniently long enough ago that nobody can prove anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if by some miracle they hired unicorns that are male feminists that don't assault females, they also hire feminists. So yeah, they've hired the women who are most likely to level this kind of accusation with it without any merit.
But the reality is, it's Blizzard, and it's probably full of scumbags. There probably are sexual predators in their ranks. Just because all of that is true doesn't mean I believe any of these accusations.
Yeah. That's all the way
because
these things go.
I'm sure bad things have happened and people have done bad things and so on and so forth, but I have no reason to believe that there aren't also a ton of false accusations, because that sort of crap is just circulating now. That's the way things are done now.
Whenever you get one accusation like this sort of thing come out, there's always 2 more that jump on the bandwagon further their own.
It's like Brett Kavanaugh, right? That US Supreme Court judge. I think he's up to something like, last time I saw he was well over 4,000 tips on things that he'd done wrong. Like,
Right.
if those tips were legitimate, he basically has never had time to study or build a career or have a family, because he would have had to be like full on the go sexual assault 24/7 from rising in the morning to going to bed at night.
Yeah.
Like, he wouldn't have had time for anything else. It would have he would have had to be groping women left and right.
As reticent as I am to defend the boy these days after his behavior on the Supreme Court itself, this is all coming immediately after it's already been proven without a shadow of a doubt that this girl just made this up.
Which
Like,
one's that?
The initial
Kavanaugh stuff?
the Kavanaugh stuff. The initial accuser completely fabricated all this. Her friend wasn't at her friend couldn't verify that she was even at the party, like she said she could.
Yeah, I think that's the most annoying thing about that sort of thing is you've got someone in there who has genuinely had something bad happen to them, and yet they're being drowned out. So nothing can be done, nothing changes.
There's an unbelievably dense smoke screen of completely irrelevant, made-up bullshit that prevents them from ever managing to tell their story or make a legitimate accusation. Like,
Yes.
that's why, I think that if any of these people on these bandwagons gave a toss about the sexual safety of women, the only message they should be pushing is go straight to the police immediately. Don't delay, don't hesitate, don't ask your friend for their opinion, just go to the
And
police.
for the love of God, do not spray it all over social media.
Yeah, if it is not worth immediately going to the police the second it happens, then I hate to break this to you, ladies, you weren't sexually assaulted.
Yeah, you just regretted it.
So that's all happening. Got this case being leveled at Blizzard. I believe they're actually being sued now by the state of California. In addition to the original pile-on that goes with all that, because of course there is. And along with that are the whistleblowers coming out about Warcraft 3 Refunded.
Yeah, I've seen the 4chan posts about it, but do we have anything harder than that as proof?
I did an article. Where did that go? Find it again. So a lot of it is just hearsay, and a lot of it is stuff that honestly pretty much everyone suspected was the case anyway. And yeah, admittedly the source is Bloomberg, so grain of salt.
Yeah, there's been a ton of 4chan leaks that are jiving up pretty close to each other, but they are 4chan leaks.
Yeah, essentially it boils down to accusations being pointed at the head of, or the upper management of Blizzard and the being counters of Activision, saying that they knowingly pushed the game out the door, mostly so they could avoid giving back the pre-order money.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the accusations are in a very small nutshell. It's a bit more involved than that. So yeah. It's nothing that people didn't suspect, really.
Well, it's always going to be upper management that makes the kind of decisions that ruined Warcraft, that ruined Refunded, because you don't get those kind of decisions from a developer or a director. No director is going to say, "Yeah, the old game can just disappear." That's going to come from upper management.
Yeah, if a developer would look at Refunded and say, "This game is not ready; it needs another 6 months in development."
Yeah. That would be what would happen if it had a competent producer that had enough pull to stop the higher ups from getting out of hand. Yeah. But that is not.
Looks at it and they say, okay, if we delay it for 6 months, people are going to demand money refunds on pre-orders, so we'll ship it now and pretend it didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
Are we still in the state where the previous version of Warcraft 3 has ceased to exist? Is that still the state of affairs?
Yeah. If you want
so they're 100% committed to that.
Yeah. if you want to play the original Warcraft 3 these days, you need to have your CDs.
Or Honest Bob's.
Or Honest Bob's.
An Honest Bob's CD.
Just borrow Honest Bob's CD. I've got my original CDs around somewhere.
They're in my drawer right over there.
But you can't play on Battle.net, and
No, as soon as you need to connect it to the internet, it'll try and patch the whole thing up.
is there a hard coded LAN mode?
Yes, I believe there. Hang on.
If there isn't, I'm certain a fan has made one.
But I'm not sure if it still exists or not.
Because I don't know if it's something that they can disable or not. So
you might have to install a crack patch anyway and get a cracked CD key to enable a bunch of these features, because Blizzard will likely try to override whatever the heck you're doing with a patch.
Yeah, the moment it connects to the internet, it'll try and just blow it all away and put the refunded version.
Yeah, so I don't think that. I don't see a realistic way you can get away with it without having to crack it.
See, Warcraft 3 Reforged actually does have the dubious honor of being the single lowest rated game on Metacritic. Let's see if that is still the case. Reforged? No, it's not. It's been bumped up to 59%. It is still at 0.6 user score. It says all you need to know about professional game reviewers.
Yeah, you can.
Who's actually put a review up there? They've given it 80%, and then their entire review is negative.
But where review bombing where?
Yeah.
Review bombing is the most useful tool customers had for letting a customer or letting a developer know they done goofed, especially with companies like Blizzard.
Well, unfortunately, they're starting to whiff now.
Yeah,
because they're being filtered out.
Yeah, they're being anti-review bombing measures are being taken on every platform, including Steam.
Yeah.
Which
Steam still allows for the bomb, but if it detects that a review bomb is happening, it doesn't update the overall score for a while.
Yeah, we can use this as a pseudo segue with Super Hot VR this week.
Oh,
that was a dumpster fire. They if it was still refundable on my account, I would, because there are disturbing scenes. They had initially put a toggle in. You go into options and turn them off, where you have to like shoot yourself in the head in VR.
Yep.
They just straight up removed them and took the toggle away.
And they blamed these sensitive times.
Yeah. Well, they said we can do better. We regret it took so long to do this.
Okay.
And they got bombed to hell and back again, but it does not reflect on their Steam page.
Yeah. So doing the self-execution bit in VR would probably be a bit upsetting to some. That's what the toggle is. Why is this still an issue?
Well, it's also, isn't it sort of the point of the game?
It is. Yeah. It actually underlines basically the entire narrative of the game.
In fact, previously, before it had a VR version, it was said that these scenes were integral to the game and the story they were trying to tell, and they could not be removed when people cried about it before.
Yeah.
I guess they've had enough churn and stuff that now people who are, snowflakes are in charge or whatever.
So it makes me wonder, what are they going to replace the story with if the
they're just gonna.
The story is gone.
They're just gonna let art be a sacrifice on the altar of political correctness, like everyone before them.
Yeah, it hit 82% of reviews in the last week were negative at its peak.
I mean, that seems reasonable because now it's got an incoherent story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't have to be this way. This is a decision that they made. This is the bed that they made for themselves to lie in.
That's happened. We'll see if they actually backpedal on it.
They won't.
No.
They're too woke.
Committed to the virtue signal now. Like, this is Superhot is not so new that this matters in any way. Like, in the sense that they are projecting that they did this for the purpose for which they did it. Like none of that applies anymore. The game is too old. So the only remaining purpose is to virtue signal about how sensitive they are and how they want to avoid triggering people or whatever.
Yeah, what baffled people was Superhot was a 5-year-old game with a 2-year-old VR version. Then they just decided to patch it out of nowhere.
Yeah, and delete the point of their story.
Yeah, the whole
Right.
conclusion of the story.
The only sort of the most charitable interpretation I can come up with is that, oh well, like a family member of somebody high up shot themselves or something, and this was an emotional reaction that wasn't thought through. Like that's about the most charitable thing I can come up with, other than sort of like completely hollow and empty virtue signaling, and you're
Yeah.
willing to sacrifice your art for it.
Like, if that was the case, I think everyone would understand. But the press release they put out has no... Well, basically, it's got no humanity to it.
We can do better. We're sorry it took us so long to realize that this all rings like a virtue signal.
Oh, it does.
Well, the other alternative is that they were threatened by somebody. Like
One person on Twitter, probably.
Well, it could be one person on Twitter, but if they were threatened by one person on Twitter, that just still leaves it as a virtue signal. When I say threatened by somebody, I mean somebody who had control over the funding for the next project or something.
That would make sense.
In which case, they're still sellouts, but
They're complete sellouts.
But at least there's a logical strain to it in that point.
Yep. And the other thing is they're virtue signaling for the sake of virtue signaling.
Which usually is the case these days.
Yeah, I'd give that an 85% chance of being the case.
So, I haven't played Superhot at this point. I was going to at some point. Oh,
It's a shame. The VR version was one of the best introduction to VR games out there.
It's a neat game. It's a very neat game.
Yeah, and it plays really well in VR. It gets you used to basic gunplay mechanics and teaches you about movement in VR really well. But I'm not going to recommend it if they're virtue signaling this hard anymore.
Especially when the story just doesn't have an ending now.
Yeah, like the whole point of the story is you're being brain controlled by the people using this program, and once you're no longer useful, they dispose of you.
Okay, what's next?
We did the Warcraft stuff. We did the Superhot stuff. That's last week.
Yeah, I think the Psychonauts 2 thing was last week. You can quickly touch on it. I don't think we actually mentioned on it.
Was it last week? I thought it was this week. But yeah, I reposted it again if it was.
Yeah,
oh yeah, it was last week too.
Psychonauts 2 has an accessibility mode in it where you can basically turn yourself invincible for... As it turns out, you can play the entire game and get all the content. Completely invincible.
And Chivos?
And
Probably.
Well, I mean,
Chivos
given how unspeakably paused that entire development team is, I'm not really surprised.
This is...
They're probably, half of them are probably games journalists or something.
Yeah, this is game journalism taken to the next level.
Yeah, I think I posted it a while back. I don't know who I sent it to or if I posted in one of the channels. The games journalist thing being a very old joke. Dating back to the ad copy for Monkey Island.
Make it easy so
Oh yes, it's in the video games channel. I'll relink it to the live show chat since we're talking about games journalism mode. But this is actually a very old joke.
Yes, except back then it was very much tongue in cheek. Now, it's standard.
Yeah, it's a standard feature. Include an easy mode so baby easy that the game journalist can play it.
That way we get good reviews. If a game journalist cannot progress in the game for 2 hours, no more reviews.
Well, I mean, the reality is that they all wanted to write for the Huffington shitpost and they ended up doing games journalism because they washed out of the job application process. Like, most of these people are very open about their total resentment for the media form. And so, they hate the people that keep them in a job by acting like they're a marketable demographic, despite the fact that that marketable demographic no longer consumes their product. Maybe there are people who still visit IGN on the regular, but I'm pretty sure most of those are just looking for links to press releases so that they can put out their own content on YouTube.
Yeah, the only time I've gone to IGN is when they're the only website with a guide when I'm Chivo hunting after I beat a game.
Yeah,
Guides are usually not bad.
I mean, the writers are terrible and the sites are sterile, but I mean, they're still a notch above the likes of the other stuff that were sort of corollary to the news proper sites. Like Games Industry basically just preaches at you now. Gamer Sutra is the same way; they just preach. But it's not. Even when they're not games reviewers, they are still only interested in attempting to continue to wage this culture war bullcrap in the video game space. They're not.
That said, with IGN, that picture in live show chat of them showing you get the jab, gamers.
Oh, is that what that is?
That's just a virtue signal now. It's like you've got to prove that you're better than the unwashed masses by having experimental drugs injected into your bloodstream, because that isn't cultish at all.
You guys can drink your Kool-Aid. Drink it right into your bloodstream.
All right. And speaking of drinking, we'll transition probably, I think, to the last article we've got. We have a new gamer-related alcohol. Unless you want to really Genshin Impact.
I don't really know. I just stuck it in there as filler.
Yeah.
Some of the new waifus that have come out since we were playing were cute, but that's about all.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's Genshin Impact, and no.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the problem with Genshin Impact is that it's actually a great game. It's just no.
Yeah,
it's just China.
no.
China.
They even managed to make Aloy a woman.
Yeah, rather. Well, she was a cardboard cutout in her own game.
Well, she looked like a man. She was at best
she
a
looked like
butterface.
Seth Rogen. Like, what are you talking
Kinda
about?
did, yeah.
Like at best, she's the most butterfaced individual on the planet. So of course, when Eastern market gets a hold of it, even China's like, this thing's supposed to be a woman. Let's do a few edits here.
Before feminine Aloy gets cancelled.
It's a shame actually, because Aloy is the weakest part of Horizon Zero.
I remember when the first trailer for that game came out, and it was at the tail end of me going, "Oh, this is a new IP. This could be possibly good." Before
Before you're hoping humanity finally died the death.
Before wokeism had set in completely, and I'm just anytime a AAA company announces a new IP, I'm just like, that's going to be paused.
Anywho, let's talk about booze. So Capcom, as part of their Resident Evil 25th celebration, is releasing a bottle of whiskey with the biohazard mark on it. $350 for a bottle of I'm going to mispronounce this because it's Scottish. Glenfarclas distillery whiskey.
Not a whiskey drinker, never have been.
No.
But
yeah, I can't say that I'm particularly fond of whiskey. It just tastes like bitter wood to me.
Yeah, I just don't drink.
It tastes like liquid sawdust.
I'm a person who favors drinking vodka neat, and I still don't like whiskey.
Whiskey's biggest selling point for a lot of people seems to be the barrel that it was in.
Well, I mean, that's because the barrel that it was in is intrinsic to the flavor, but you've got to work quite hard and spend a lot of money to develop the right palate to drink whiskey for leisure.
It just stinks to me. I tried sniffing it at one point.
It's definitely one of those acquired taste things that you have to work quite hard to acquire. I don't know, maybe there are experienced whiskey drinkers who could nominate like, oh well, there's this whiskey or other that is good for novice drinkers to get them into understanding the flavors of whiskey, and it's actually quite a drinkable spirit. But I've never heard of such a thing. It's not like other spirits, like say rum is very, very easy to drink. People who don't drink spirits normally could probably still find a rum that they liked, but
But
In the
you
case
shouldn't
of
drink
whiskey,
rum because
no.
it comes out of your skin and makes you stink.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You don't have to drink all of the rum.
Yeah, around
If you
here,
drink so much rum, you go, "Where is the rum gone? I think you've had too much rum," and that might come out of your skin and make it stink.
Yeah, rum here it seems to be the I just want to get absolutely destroyed drink of choice.
Well,
That-
that's like I said. It's because you can quite easily find an easily drinkable rum, which is different than whiskey, where you can't quite so easily find an easily drinkable whiskey.
Yeah, and whiskey is the most popular drink in my area by far. It's not even close.
Yeah, well, in your area, they'll drink anything that comes out of a bathtub. So
So people have tried to get me to try whiskey before, and I just have not ever liked it.
So, yeah, we've established that none of us know anything about whiskey, but at least by the look of this, they've gone for a reputable distillery. They've put together a nice product. It's in a nice box. It's in a nice bottle. It is not Nuka rum.
is that based though? Is that based on a review of the end product? Because the marketing for the Nuka Cola was incredibly misleading
Deceptive.
as well.
Yes, up until that point where they stopped lying, and then everyone got very, very angry. I'd be amazed if someone was that stupid to do that again. I mean, someone who's not Bethesda.
Capcom have been relatively onto it in the past, and they've got a reputation for doing some pretty fruity sort of marketing gimmicks as far as extra stuff that you can buy go.
Never forget the Easter eggs.
You can't forget the Easter eggs, but they hit at both ends of the scale. Like they do some pretty sort of extensive and impressive stuff, and they do some very, very, very poorly thought out stuff as well.
We won't know if Capcom is completely turned around until the next either Street Fighter or Marvel vs. Capcom.
Well, they're fighting game teams separate, but if they manage to pull their heads out of their butts, then the whole company will have completely gotten back on track.
Yes. So that's the biggest test. But everything else so far has been looking good. Although people are still very reluctant to give Capcom the time of day.
Well, they did cock it up pretty bad for 2.5, 3 years.
Mm. Incidentally, the news sites we tend to go to don't read the comments.
Well, there's always this one guy that's worried about Jill's pants.
There is!
I think it's the same guy.
Yeah, he hasn't... Oh, wait, no, never mind. There he is. I was about to say he hasn't seen to make it to this article, but no, there he is.
Anything remotely related to Capcom is this one guy complaining about how Jill's pants got nerfed.
I remember there being some kind of dispute over the status of Jill's pants, but I did not realize that there were still people who were hurt over it.
Apparently that guy is.
It's sort of like, I guess for him, it's sort of like how, like, I've got friends who get upset every time I mention the ending of Mass Effect 3, and, like, the wound is still raw for them.
Yeah. This guy, for that guy, apparently it's...
It gets like a gorillion upvotes every single time.
Well, I guess he's sort of like a local character now.
Yeah, it's because he usually spouts some horrible anti-woke fallacy or something. He's one of those people who's kind of so anti-woke he's come all the way back around to woke again.
Yeah, you get a few of those on the Tech Raptors and the Niche Gamers when they do get comments on their articles. They just...
a niche gamer, you're more likely to see people ranting about the Jews, I think.
Oh yes, there's plenty of that going on.
No, they started curating their comments so that the talk of da Jews is less intense.
Yeah, well, you tend to attract the wrong sort of attention from various organizations if you leave that stuff up for too long.
That may or may not own YouTube.
Incidentally, I just found an article about SMT5, and apparently you seem to get an Android.
Oh, in SMT5, I'm scared to mention SMT5 stuff because the trailers have been going up and we've been learning a lot about the game, but all the discussion around the game has been completely cancer.
Yeah, because of the fairly androgynous looking protagonist brought all the crazies out of the way.
Yeah.
Have you at least been able to confirm that they haven't brought in any strange new artists?
They're reusing most of Kaneko's stuff.
So it's all classic
Mostly.
classic demon
yeah.
designs, not
They're
interesting.
keeping some of the better received designs from SMT4, it looks like, but the rest of them appear to be classics. I don't know what
So
new
not-
ones we're gonna get.
The weird mutant Michael Jackson.
We're probably due for an overhaul of Mara again.
Yeah, no weird loose Michael Jackson Lucifer with the baby fetus arm.
What was with that? Seriously.
There's a story reason for it, and it's really dumb.
Yeah, so let's not go into that because it's just dumb. Yeah, every now and again they throw out a demon design that is just what?
Well, they hired a bunch of guest artists for.
Again.
Yeah, they hired a guest artist for SMT4, and just some of his designs were really bad. He made a bunch of the classical demons, like a bunch of the popular Japanese figures, like Taki Mikazuchi and stuff, look like freaking Power Rangers.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's not
That's
unusual for there to be demons in SMT that look like Power Rangers.
It's just these were already ones that had classic designs, and the Power Rangers designs were way over designed and looked way worse.
Like classic Melchizedek looks like a Power Ranger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can pull up the wiki, I'll throw an example of some of his art and stuff. But yeah, it's looking okay so far. The new designs, you can see most of them on the. Come on, go back. You can do it. You can see most of them on the cover feature. It looks like that they got posted. If I can find an actual picture of it, yeah. And they all seem to be in line with Kaneko's old designs. I'll post it in live show chat.
Oh. Just as a random aside, I just flicked back to the Metacritic tab I had open, and I noticed an interesting award on Warcraft 3 Reforged.
Oh,
Award.
They only have one award according to Metacritic, or at least one Metacritic award, right? And it's #1 most discussed PC game of 2020.
Maybe.
that's
Oh, they were discussed. They were 100% discussed.
Well, people
all the
discuss a
wrong
lot of
reasons.
things now. It depends on who you're talking about doing the discussing.
Yes.
Do you mean discuss or disgust?
As in talking about. But yes, discussed as well.
Because both are true.
Both are very true. So that was just a random tangent.
But yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of the stories about Blizzard that are coming out now are vultures descending to pick the corpse.
Yeah. Like if the mass exodus wasn't going on, I think we wouldn't have seen this lawsuit start up until probably later. Yeah.
It's probably
If
people
there
that
was
were on the
legal
way.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This seems like something like these employees are on their way out the door and want to wring some last minute cash out of
Yeah,
Blizzard.
it's like the writing is definitely on the wall for Blizzard right now. They've failed to accomplish any of the ends that they were supposed to in this financial year so far. Everything has been going badly for them, and they're losing all of their best talent. And those talent are all going to start up rival companies using more of their own staff. So the situation for Blizzard is extremely dire. And like I said, vultures coming to pick the corpse. This is the time to strike now if you think you can wring some cash out of your boss before your boss goes into liquidation.
Yeah. They failed their franchises, they failed their shareholders, they failed their fans. They failed themselves.
And apparently their employees.
Yeah, they failed
Yeah.
pretty much everybody.
At the rate things are going, I wouldn't be surprised if the Blizzard arm of Activision Blizzard is not liquefied. I would be surprised if it's not liquefied in 5 years tops. While might keep them on life support for a bit.
Yeah, there's definitely talk around and of Brack stepping down.
Yeah, that's not going to solve anything. Like him taking over was just a symptom. It's not. He's not the driving force behind the fall of Blizzard. Although there's probably quite likely that he's a significant contributing factor. I mean, all of the people who are washing out of Blizzard and going off to start these other companies, all of them say that the ego at the top is the #1 problem in Blizzard.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to put everything on Brack's table for that, but he certainly hasn't helped things.
It's
Uh,
like you've got our boy
Blizzard was-
Bobby at the top,
Yeah.
but ultimately, our boy Bobby doesn't care how you make money so long as you do.
Yeah, as soon as you stop
So-
making money, he's looking at you.
There's no reason to deliberately screw yourself over because he doesn't mind if you make your money by doing things that are good for the gamers as well. So long as he gets his money owes and he can continue the construction of the Death Star.
There's some old memes.
Made him money.
Blizzard's been in free fall for the last few years. It's really all just kind of starting to hit at once.
Yeah, I can see throughout the next several years we'll be reading off news stories of how Blizzard is continuing to collapse, especially as a independent entity
like
within
to
Activision.
I kind of want to see, like, WoW would fold before this happens, but Blizzard getting sold off. And someone picking it up and lifting it back up again.
Yeah, surely
Yeah,
WoW's got to be a source of life support for Blizzard at this point.
I think that I feel like Blizzard has got a red mark though by
It's
their
got a
name
definite
now.
stain on it.
Like, there's not what is left to save? What exactly is left to save?
Yeah.
Like there's the IPs that have been run dead into the ground.
At this point, it's the legacy, and that's really about it.
But that's
It
just
would-
nostalgia. Nostalgia by itself is not a saleable product.
Yeah.
The IPs will have some value after they've had time to lose some of the modern funk.
I think that you can't really do much with Blizzard unless the people in charge of Blizzard proper were willing to just go totally hands off and allow people who actually cared about the products to drive the direction. Like the only thing that Blizzard has that's currently in play and salvageable is World of Warcraft Classic. If they hit the brakes now and backed off their monetization scheme and backed off all of the changes that they were planning to make that make WoW Classic not WoW Classic anymore, then you could still salvage that project and you could move on from there.
If
The-
you
the-
take...
The problem is that they have a rapidly closing window to do that because basically all of the people there are going to Final Fantasy.
Yeah. Final Fantasy does everything it's promised to do.
And they've actively sabotaged WoW Classic throughout its lifespan as well.
I think what
They
they need
did-
to do, honestly, is say, okay, the retail storyline is over. We're going to go to Classic, we're going to keep that design philosophy, and we're going to spin off a new timeline.
The fans still won't have any faith in that because what that'll inevitably do is just put Blizzard in a position to continue having great ideas and over designing things.
And ruining them, yes.
If they don't have a roadmap they have to follow to the letter to keep this thing feeling like Classic, they're going to be in trouble. And if they decide to spin off into a new product or a new storyline, they're just going to get free reign to do all the same BS they did on retail all over again.
That's the thing. It's because the people that work at Blizzard are working at Blizzard.
Yeah, they need
The
to
problem
overhaul
is the
staff
people.
first.
Yeah, you simply can't use those staff. They're not good for anything anymore. They've been poisoned by company culture. They need to be detoxed first if they are even salvageable.
So, shake up the staff, clean it all out first, then you spin it off. That might get some people.
Well, they need to undo. They need to act. They would have to actually start caring about WoW Classic first, because I get the feeling that Blizzard resents WoW Classic's success quite a bit because they sabotaged the game throughout its life cycle.
That's
They got
very much
everything
the
they can
impression I
sabotage.
got. Well, I would like to think that even Blizzard aren't that dumb that they would just arbitrarily choose to sabotage something which is. It feels like such a surefire thing. It was so universally demanded, and it met with universal acclaim when it came out. It was like, finally, I get back to doing in WoW what I wanted to be doing to begin with. And to be so vain as to undermine it, to try and protect your vision for retail, for like current year retail going forward, that's so unspeakably idiotic to the point that I can barely even process it.
Yeah, it just shows you were wrong. That's what WoW Classic did. So they've done things like They don't ban any of the Chinese bots that come in. Every server complains nonstop on the Reddit about how bots have overtaken the server and ruined the economy. You have them releasing the patches way faster than they intended to initially. Not putting any care into things like bug fixes that are genuine bugs, but they'll just leave it sit for like months in raids because they don't want to touch anything. And they'll say, but we want it to be exactly the same.
Yeah, I think they had their shot and their pride got in the way, and this is the exact same story that gets told every time Blizzard releases anything new. They had their shot to make it a good thing, but they let their pride get in the way. It's the same over and over and over and over. You can't do anything with that company anymore. Every single person there needs to be purged, and the land needs to be left to lie fallow for some years to come. I don't think that you can do anything now because the people involved are too invested in their own egos, too obsessed with themselves.
Yeah, the smartest thing to do, I think, would actually be to sell off Blizzard, or at least its IPs, to anybody that will take it, and then for that company to take those IPs and sit on them for about almost half a decade and not do anything with them, and just let the modern funk of Blizzard wane off of them, and then with a brand new dev team of entirely new people, attempt to build something in the spirit of what those IPs used to represent.
Yeah, it's too toxified now. I think that they just need to give up and deal with the fact that they screwed everything up and try and at least either salvage or maintain some value to those IPs by letting the passage of time wear the rough corners off of them. Like, Blizzard are pretty short on IPs as it is, and I dread to think what they're going to do to Diablo.
Especially because Diablo's rushed.
Yeah, that's still in play, and they're going to be rushing like a mofo to try and salvage their reputation with their bosses. That's also the thing, is that they're going to be trying to sell their product to their bosses. Which, I mean, what's the most recent major example of that behavior is that what's that game? The Iron Man like one, Anthem.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was Anthem is the result of selling a product to your bosses.
Yes.
That was the direct reason behind its complete implosion.
Destiny, but
yeah, they were trying to please the boss, and that's where the situation they're stuck in now is they can't even choose not to do that with Diablo because they will be fired if they can't get that product out the door. So yeah, it's not a good situation. They can't really haul anything out now. I don't think. Like, they're going to have to just drop everything they're currently working on and like make another Lost Vikings game.
please don't let them make a Lost Vikings game. They'll ruin it.
Well, I mean, if they're distracted enough from ruining their other IPs, maybe there'll be some benefit. But yeah, I think that
haven't ruined yet.
I think that Activision's just basically going to cut them loose. They'll just dissolve them, or they'll fragment them out, or they'll put them on support work for Call of Duty or something. Like, that's got to be the most humiliating posture for Blizzard imaginable, as if they got relegated to a Call of Duty support studio.
Oh man, I would love to see Mark Kern's Twitter feed when that happens.
The gloating would be real.
Mark Kern's Twitter feed is always worth it.
Yeah, he's basically just been gushing nonstop about how much fun he's having in Final Fantasy XIV lately, because he hadn't played it.
Yeah.
Or rather, he'd played a little bit of it, but he didn't have the time to really stick with an MMO at the time when he tried it out. And now that he's gone back to it, he's sort of like rediscovered World of Warcraft.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure Yoshi P is his personal hero at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just that they've taken the attitude that he thought Blizzard should have taken in their sort of devotion to their craft, their devotion to the idea of making things that seem fun, making a world that is full of stuff to waste your time doing for fun, and just generally their sort of like accountability to the fan base, and the fan base has returned that accountability with loyalty.
Yeah. And
That's the
memes.
thing. Like they love Yoshi P. Final Fantasy fans, generally speaking, while they will get salty every time they have to read the words, please look forward to it. Nevertheless, they still have repaid the dedication that the Final Fantasy 14 team has shown to them with loyalty.
Here's a comparison. Every year, Final Fantasy XIV does an anniversary event where Yoshi P himself breaks the fourth wall and inserts himself into the game. Could you imagine if Blizzard did that right now?
Well, they don't have any kind of.
People would be going in there trying to find ways to glitch it so they could massacre them.
Yes. Like
That would be the only
loves
attraction.
The annual fourth wall break, especially because usually it's ridiculously cheesy and over the top. But if Blizzard tried it and they put one of their head developers in the game for a day or so, yeah, people will go out of their way to try and get that character or that NPC killed.
And Blizzard doesn't have any big characters in its development staff anymore. They've all quit. Like your Mark Kearns or your Chris Metzens or your whatever, your people that could get in front of a camera and really do good presentation, they're all gone.
Yep.
Remember Brack at every BlizzCon afterwards, after all those guys quit?
Yeah, he's gone great really quick, by the way.
Brack has always appeared really soulless every time he goes on the stage. So he's just trying to keep things going for another year, just barely. And doesn't have any heart for the job that he's doing anymore, quite obviously.
He was probably really excited for the first couple of months.
Now he presides over a company best known for, Warcraft 3 Refunded and Don't You Guys Have Phones, and this long sort of humiliation conga of disgusting things Blizzard has done to offend its customers.
The Blitzchung thing.
He should be thinking, you're the captain now, bye.
Yeah, like everything that he's doing is going to be rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
Yes. So with that, how about we start wrapping up?
Alrighty.
So, if you want to play Final Fantasy XIV, it's got one hell of a free trial, and it's also on sale at the moment. Go play it. It's great.
Yeah.
If I can looking up Mogverse.
Yeah, if I can work up the resolve to go through Mog Station and find some time to actually sit down and commit to an MMO, I'll consider poking at it again.
I can find a way to clone myself so I can go to work and stay at home and play multiple games at once.
If you cloned yourself, your boss would claim to the clone and just put it.
Yeah, more than likely.
It would be like, ooh, I got two of this guy that can do the job now.
Hooray! One of them's going to be permanently posted in Dunedin.
They would probably just fire everybody else that just make me do all the work.
Okay, yes, he might have to pay you twice the amount, but then even not you or your clone are having any fun.
Surely you're at a point at work where the next time it comes to salary negotiations, you can go, you're going to pay me the world or I'm going to walk.
No, they'll just fire me. They'll just let me go. They don't care.
They'll do
they
with
don't care about that kind of thing. The entire industry operates on a sort of like a cartel structure where all of the major players have agreed that they're not going to pay more than a certain amount, and so nobody does. Like the thing you've got to keep in mind is that, like for instance, Listeriosis has roughly a 20% fatality rate. I'm being paid minimum wage to determine whether or not there's going to be an outbreak at a given location.
Yeah, you'd think it'd be worth a bit more than minimum.
This is how the industry operates. Like, by contrast, what's the mortality rate for the COOF? Like, how much are the experts who determine public health decisions on the COOF getting paid?
Well, they're all bureaucrats, so
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Furthermore, like the results that comprise a positive case for the COOF, I would just write off as a false positive if I had seen it on one of my PCR tests. Like they've set the threshold to maximize the number of possible cases. Like they're deliberately provoking large quantities of false positives with their methods. But Yeah, ultimately, minimum wage is where it's at, or very close to it anyway. For people in my position. So yeah, if I decide I'm not all that motivated and make a bad call because I'm tired from overwork or whatever, I'm afraid people die. That's just how it goes, and that's 20 to 30% is the fatality rate for that, and that doesn't even count miscarriages, I don't think, which are one of the primary symptoms. But yeah, that's just the industry. Nobody pays more than that because nobody actually cares about public health. Let's be serious. They're all just pretending.
That bleak statement out, eh?
Science is terrible. This is what I've learned. In fact, there is no such thing as science. It's a fiction.
Well, science is something that you read about in history books, more or less. It doesn't really exist so much anymore. So there's too much politics and money involved. Nobody's really interested in actually moving the fields forward. Sometimes it happens on accident, but that's usually a byproduct of some other political or financial interest.
Alrighty. The future's terrible, everyone.
Yep, everything is bleak and horrible.
Email topic of the week. What's your ETA on Blizzard dying?
Give them 12
In any way.
months.
I give them at most 5 years, realistically 2 years.
I mean, they can keep it on life support indefinitely if they really want.
Actually, I know
Yeah.
what we'll find out is when the next expansion announcement comes.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a next expansion?
Yeah, they need to get the okay from the higher ups to do that because they didn't want to go it on their own as Blizzard Entertainment anymore, and the tendrils of Activision have crept in and basically reforged the business in their image. Now they have to deal with the consequences.
Yep. All right, closing comments and let's get out of here.
Yeah, it's awful.
I want to put Rathian in my party, but she just doesn't have anything useful. Like that, I'm really getting annoyed at the HM system, or what I think of internally as the HM system. Like, I can't even take Velocidrome out of my party despite the fact that he's garbage.
Yeah.
I just can't, because I need to be able to jump things. It's really
Need to
starting to
swim.
drive me up the wall.
Jump, swim, climb. Later on, you'll probably need fly.
I kind of like Spongy Boy. I don't mind having him in my team. Like, I'm going to fight you with a giant loofah. So
Onwards.
Oh, man. All right, folks. We will see y'all next week. Sayonara. Bye-bye.